What if the next great shock between world powers didn't stay confined to the trenches of Ukraine or the reefs of the South China Sea, but instead spilled over into the very systems that keep our lives running? The food on grocery shelves, the fuel in our tanks, the power that lights our homes. Which countries would continue to function and which would collapse? Today, we're ranking 7 nations most likely to keep society running if the world suddenly shuts down. When we say the world stops, we're not talking about earthquakes or tsunamis. We're talking about geopolitical crises that are already brewing. NATO and Russia facing off, a missile strike near the Strait of Hormuz, cyber attacks on major power grids, or a war in Asia that spreads outward. These are the shocks that paralyze supply chains, send energy prices soaring, and push governments to the breaking point. In this video, we'll use 6 clear pillars to measure resilience. Political stability. Can a government maintain order under pressure? Infrastructure resilience. How well do power, transport, and communication systems withstand disruption? Food independence. Does the country produce its own supplies or rely on imports? Energy security. Whether hydro, nuclear, or renewables, can the lights stay on without foreign fuel? Geographic insulation. Is it safely distant from contested front lines? Social cohesion, the hardest to measure, but crucial. Do citizens and government trust each other enough to act together? No country is perfect, but together, these pillars show us who is most likely to keep functioning when stress reaches its peak. Number 7. Australia. A vast land with abundant agriculture and deep reserves of coal, gas, and renewables, Australia can feed itself and still export food if global trade falters. Its distance from Europe and the Middle East gives it some insulation, but through the AUKUS alliance with the US and the UK, Australia is tied to the strategic contest with China. In other words, it has resources to endure, but also the risk of being dragged into the very conflicts it hopes to outlast. Number 6. Ireland. On the western edge of Europe, Ireland is one of the most peaceful nations on Earth. Its agricultural surpluses in dairy and beef give it food security, and the Atlantic Ocean buffers it from land wars. But its energy grid is linked to Britain and Europe, so disruptions there could spill over. Still, Ireland's mix of peace, food, and geography earns it a solid position in this ranking. Number 5. Uruguay. Often overlooked, Uruguay is one of Latin America's most resilient states. Over the past decade, it transformed its power grid to run almost entirely on renewables, shielding it from oil shocks. It is a stable democracy with strong social trust and low corruption. The weakness is scale. A small population and dependence on trade routes mean blockages at sea could hurt. But in terms of keeping households powered and services running, Uruguay is among the best prepared in its region. Number 4. Austria. Landlocked in Central Europe, Austria might not seem safe in a crisis, yet it consistently ranks high in peace and stability, with hydropower providing most of its electricity. Its constitutionally enshrined neutrality has helped it avoid conflicts for decades. The downside is geography. Surrounded by NATO states and reliant on imports, it would feel the shock of any broader European war. Still, if the question is which societies can keep functioning as neighbors stumble, Austria makes the list. Number 3. Switzerland. Neutrality here is more than a slogan. Switzerland has built a civil defense system unlike any other, with underground shelters for its entire population and extensive contingency planning. Hydropower and nuclear give it reliable electricity, and its democracy enjoys high levels of trust. The economy is deeply tied to the EU, so trade disruptions would sting, but in terms of sheer preparedness, Switzerland is one of the most resilient nations in the world. Number 2. Iceland. With fewer than 400,000 people, Iceland is small, but its energy security is unmatched. Nearly all of its power comes from geothermal and hydro, guaranteeing electricity even if global fuel flows stop. It ranks near the top of the Global Peace Index,
far removed from military front lines. Its weakness is food. Harsh climate limits agriculture, so imports matter. But energy abundance supports greenhouses and fisheries, softening the blow. Geography and resources make Iceland surprisingly resilient compared to far larger states. Number 1. New Zealand. At the very top is New Zealand, an island nation distant from the world's flashpoints, with abundant food production and one of the cleanest energy mixes in the developed world. Almost 90% of its electricity comes from renewables, primarily hydro and geothermal. Its farms produce far more meat, dairy, and grains than its 5 million people need. Geography protects it. Food and power sustain it. No country is flawless. New Zealand still relies on imports for specialized fuel and medical supplies. But if the question is, who keeps society functioning when the world breaks down? New Zealand rises above the rest. Lessons for the United States. So what does this mean for Americans thousands of miles away? The message isn't to pack your bags for Iceland or New Zealand. It's about learning what makes societies resilient and applying those lessons at home. The strongest nations share 3 traits: reliable power, steady food, and public trust in institutions. America has immense farmland and energy resources, but its vulnerabilities are real. An aging power grid exposed to cyber attacks? Families without even 3 days of emergency supplies? Political division that undermines unified response? The Colonial Pipeline hack in 2021 showed how fragile fuel supply chains are. Stations ran dry within days. The Texas winter storm that same year proved how quickly homes, hospitals, and stores can fail when the grid collapses. Those were domestic accidents. Imagine the same failures during an international crisis. Europe shows a different model. Finland stockpiles food and fuel. Switzerland runs civil drills. Austria invests in resilience. In America, preparedness is too often dismissed as fringe rather than a civic duty.
The bigger question: if Washington faced a global crisis tomorrow, would American society keep working smoothly, or would fractures appear first in politics, then in neighborhoods, then in homes? No nation is immune, but some are better prepared. Iceland's energy, Switzerland's civil defense, Uruguay's renewables, Austria's neutrality, Ireland's food, Australia's vast resources, New Zealand's distance and surplus. Different paths, one outcome: societies more likely to endure shocks. For the United States, the lesson is urgent. Oceans no longer guarantee safety. Cyber attacks, energy price spikes, and supply chain collapses cross borders in hours, not years. The question is not whether America is far enough away, but whether it is ready enough. Preparation is not panic. Preparation is function. So here's the final challenge. If the next global shock came not next decade, but next month, would America keep going or be caught unprepared, assuming geography alone will save it? If this video opened your eyes, don't just scroll away. Hit that like button and subscribe right now. Every click helps us bring you more stories, more analysis, and more truth that you won't find anywhere else. Join our community today so you never miss what comes next.